Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out People of Reddit. Story 1. I caused ex-friend to be uninvited to concert. A few years ago I had a side job that was on call. It about ruined my social life and it caused my friendship with Leanne to end. Short story long, when I had the on-call job I had to cancel or cut short several of social engagements. My then friend Leanne had enough and bad-mouthed me to our mutual friends after I cancelled at the last minute. To make matters worse, it wasn't even something she was hosting. Our friend group had about 10 people and we'd have potlucks, always very casual events. Both her and 2 of her besties dropped me as a friend, but the remainder of people kept neutral over our fallout and still kept in touch. A year and a half goes by and Leanne's friends let go of the grudge but not Leanne. I tried to make amends with Leanne but she ghosted me. I was sad this happened, but felt that she had her boundaries and I crossed one. I start getting invited again by my friends and noticed that Leanne would only respond to the group texts after I confirmed or opted out of the invitation. At one point Leanne had a big party and didn't invite me. When a couple of friends pointed out to her that I was left off the invitation, they were gaslit by her. For what it's worth, she invited 30 people but only 10 people showed. Our friend Brian had a milestone birthday and bought concert tickets for our friend group to celebrate. He emailed everyone but got a reject for my email. He called for the correct email and to invite me to the concert. I declined the invitation as I was going to be out of town that same night. About a week before the concert my phone blows up with texts about the concert logistics. I notice once again Leanne hasn't responded, so I decide to wait to tell the group I'm not going. The next day I reply that I had told Brian a while back I'm not attending but I hope everyone has a great time. I see Brian about a week after the concert and he said he had a great time. He showed me some pictures and there was a picture of a guy I never met. Turns out the guy was a buddy from college. He had an extra ticket because Leanne RSVP'd too late, so he invited his buddy in her absence. He gave my ticket to a mutual friend who wanted to bring a date. He didn't have ticket for her. Story 2. No nudes for you. When I was in my early 20s, I rented out a room in my house to a boarder for $50/week. At first, he was great at paying, but as time went on, he started saying that he couldn't pay me that week. Even though he couldn't pay me, he still had the money to buy nudie magazines. One of the weeks he couldn't pay, he bought 3, which was almost equivalent to half of his rent. I finally had enough and got a Sharpie and drew clothes on all the naked women. Some had granny panties but most were fully clothed. So petty and immature, but I had so much fun doing it. Edited for spelling. Story 3. What goes around comes all the way back around. Not sure if this qualifies as petty revenge. This happened about 20 years ago and still so fresh in my mind. My fiancé Colby, ex, and I were together for 5 years. We got engaged about a year after we were dating. I was 19 and he was 20. We are, both mature for our ages. We didn't party and enjoyed spending time just hanging out together. So I worked for a large grocery chain that has long since gone out of business. He was in college working on medial degree. We weren't from the college town and didn't know that many people the 3 years we were there. So he had this art class he was taking and spent a great deal of time there. College was 1 minute from our house. So I would go hang out with him and others in the class after work or on my off time. He would make art pieces and then sold them at fairs and festivals. He was very talented and made a lot of money selling those pieces. So one day I went to hang out with him and found him hanging out with another woman, Karen. Of course I immediately freaked out. We lived together so it made things difficult. Well, Karen was married. She was married to Cliff. Cliff was a gay. Cliff found out they were cheating because I told him. We were all good friends at the time. Well, I moved out about 3 weeks later and moved hours away. Made sure I never had to see any of them ever again. Well, about 2 years pass and I ended up talking to Colby again. He told me a very good story of what happened after I left. ROTFLMAO good story. Karen's husband Cliff divorced her and took everything from her except the car and dog. She and Colby I think lived together for a little bit, then one day she flipped out. She found out he was cheating on her and she got abusive towards him. She would throw things at him and ended up breaking his nose. It was a brutal breakup. He then started dating the other girl, Elena, and were together for a few months. So Elena ended up cheating on him with another guy. I kind of felt sorry for him, but he deserved it. I laughed so much when I found out and still laugh to this day about it. We are still friends but don't really talk. He now has a couple kids and a girlfriend and have been together for 15 years. So needless to say, what goes around comes around and around. Story 4. Update 3. Put a lien on my neighbors for not being able to pay an illegal special assessment. I'll put a lien on your $20 million mansion. Hello all. Here with a little update. Link to the original post and previous updates here. https://www.reddit.com/r/pettyrevenge/. Story 5. My mom kicked me out. Have fun throwing out your pillow. So my 18F mother, 50-something F, kicked me out today because I wouldn't let her financially take advantage of me. She told me to get out and take nothing with me. Then she left. I'm really fortunate that one of my friends lives in the same building as me, so we were able to take everything I owned in about 3 hours. I've been seeing this coming for a while, so most of my things were already packed away. Now, a little context for my friend. She, bless her heart, has the worst body odor I've ever smelled. It's bad. Like never completely come out of fabric bad. And for the past 3 hours we have been running up and down 2 flights of stairs carrying heavy boxes. So, as we sit on the couch, resting and taking the place in before we never return, I allow myself one petty thought. I grab my mother's pillow and I hand it to my friend. She understands the assignment. That pillow goes under her armpits, her back, her chest, anywhere it can soak up 3 hours worth of sweat. That pillow sees hell. We put the pillow back in its place and leave. Now, I don't know if she actually meant for me to leave or not. But when she gets home and sees my room empty, I hope she regrets chasing away the last person who cared for her. And when she gets in bed and lays her head down on her pillow, I hope she cries. Edit. I'm not sure why it won't let me post the update separately, so I'll just put it here. Hi. So this was kind of my first time posting on Reddit and I'm surprised at how much attention this got. I don't come here often. I mostly just listen to r/. Thank you so much for your kind words and advice. Reading the Story 6. You're mad at me over your gambling problem. Background: about 25 years ago, I registered my lastname.com for my personal use. I mostly use it as an email server for my family. Unfortunately, there are many businesses around the world that use my last name. Their country code for their websites and email. As such, I regularly get business email sent to my server. Most of the time, this just bounces, but sometimes they happen to match the name of a user or former user of my mail server. As all of the companies have been polite so far, I routinely forward business-related email to the correct addresses. Because it doesn't really cost me anything, I have set up personal email addresses for some people I don't actually know who happen to have my last name, as long as they agree to not use it for spam. 20 years ago, there was this one guy who happened to have the same first name as my deceased uncle. I was monitoring that address, just in case anything important legally or financially came through, to make sure that his family didn't get surprised by anything. The guy who decided to use that for his address had a serious gambling problem. I was getting emails from several gambling sites, often multiple times per day, with transaction records for large, at least from my perspective, deposits. These were all credit card transactions, very often for offshore online casinos, so they didn't exactly abide by banking regulations, either in the USA or his home country. In other words, I often got the full credit card numbers and expiration dates emailed unencrypted. If I had been dishonest, I could have easily run up thousands of dollars in charges. Because some of these transactions also had his physical address, I did have a way to contact him. First, by using that, I was able to figure out what his actual personal email address was. I did not want to use his company email because of the nature of what I was sending, so I emailed him and explained the problem, and asked him if he was really comfortable with me having access to several of his credit cards. He accused me of being a hacker, called me several names that I shouldn't repeat here, and blew me off, because I kept getting the email receipts. At this point, I figured out that he was probably digging himself and his family into a fairly deep financial hole, and, while I was annoyed with him for ignoring his problem and being rude, I didn't think that his family should pay the price for his bad gambling habit. Because I had his home address, I was able to figure out his wife's name and where she worked. I printed up a stack of about 20 of the emails, put them into an envelope marked personal and confidential, and dropped them in the mail to her office. A couple of weeks later, the gambling emails stopped. A few months after that, out of curiosity, I did a search for them again and found the legal notice for their divorce. Oops. Story 7. I have more balls than a eunuch. My best friend often can't stand me listening to my wife too much. He believes that a man should always have the last word in a relationship. My thinking is that in a relationship we can both make decisions. He then says hurtful things like I'm a eunuch. A man with no balls. Recently I found out that my friend is infertile. He has always made it seem like the problem is with his girlfriend. When I bring it up he always tries to avoid the subject. So it's okay to put me down but not okay when it comes to yourself? The other day I had enough and told him who exactly is a eunuch. At least I have a 7-year-old son. Edit, OMG, I didn't expect to get so many responses. Interesting that the majority here believes that he is not a true friend. Just based on a short post from me? We've been friends for 30 years and can really rely on each other. We've been through a lot together. He's even the godfather of my son. Occasionally, he makes the remark that I let my wife make the decisions too much. He sees it as a weakness and thinks that I'm supposedly afraid of my wife. In that aspect, I completely disagree with him. We've talked about how wonderful it would be if our children would grow up together. From time to time, I ask when he's finally going to start having children. They've been trying for at least 10 years. He always bragged about how strong his sperm is. Recently, he confessed that he actually turned out to be infertile. I found that terrible to hear. Coincidentally, I had a matter recently that I wanted to discuss with my wife first after I shared it with my friend. He starts talking again about how I have no balls. At one point, I was so fed up that I wanted to get back at him. Before I knew it, it came out of my mouth and I asked him who exactly is the man without balls here. He became furious and said that I didn't respect him. In no way do I want to hurt my best friend. It's a medical condition that it is beyond his control. I tried to explain to him that it wasn't my intention to hurt him. But why is it okay to keep saying that I'm a eunuch? Eventually, he understood the hint, and he offered his apologies. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.